Okay, we are doing it. I have my oat milk matcha latte and we're gonna do the booktube newbie tag. Cheers! Alright, so our first question is, why did you start this channel? And I actually have 3 different responses for this because they're kind of like 3 different phases we could look at. But I first started my channel, I guess I technically uploaded my first video in 2018, but I really actually started it in 2020. That's when I started posting more than just that one video I uploaded. But it was because I loved to watch YouTube and it was just a creative outlet. I wanted to connect with people, and not necessarily people that like knew me in day-to-day real life. I wanted to like connect with people who might have similar interests, or just, I don't know, just like reach out into the internet and just like see what happens. But 2021, the next year, I at that point had a new baby, and I was trying to figure out like what can I do to work from home. And given my like areas of interest and expertise, I landed on reading tarot online. So then I really made my channel geared towards that, and it still pretty much is. The videos are kind of like a wide variety of videos, but my main like job via YouTube is reading tarot on live stream. So I have, as you can imagine, a whole lot of spiritual topics, but I also did cover a lot of like creative topics on my channel as well. So that's kind of like reason number 2 for forming the channel, or like molding it into what it has become up until now. And that all of that is still going to continue. And I'm wanting to really have an outlet for some more like fun personal interests, specifically reading. You can see where this is going. But being a mom and wanting to have like some more time for myself, but needing it to be something that can weave in pretty easily like into life, how it already has become, is important. And I found that reading has just really hit that spot. It really is. It's the space that I need. It's something easy. I can bring it with me to the park. When Arthur, my son, is playing in the park, or like, you know, bring it in the car. He falls asleep in the car. I can read in the car. I think that there's like a question later on that's like, where do you read? So I guess I'm touching a little bit on that now. But like I said, it's something I can weave into my life and do that. So that is why I'm creating basically a booktube section of my channel. I've added a whole new day that I'll be uploading videos, which is Saturday. I'm going to be focusing mostly on like bookish themed videos on that day. So question number 2 is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to booktube? So if you can't already guess based off of the previous answer, I would say, and this might not be everyone's cup of tea, but if it is your cup of tea, it might really be your cup of tea, is adding a spiritual perspective to things. So for example, I really want to do a series, I'm planning it out, looking at fairy tales and themes in fairy tales, and kind of some spiritual and esoteric meanings behind them. But what's interesting to me actually is that I feel like the world of fantasy, which is, you know, fiction, but it's tapping into our subconscious. It's coming from that creative place within us. And I feel like there are a lot of like hidden truths and things about like our spiritual nature that are hidden in fantasy in the same way that they're hidden in fairy tales. Or not so much even like hidden as it is something that sparks that imagination, that sparks that realization that you might not just get living your day-to-day life, but when you're thrust into like a different imaginary world or realm, and you're kind of faced with new symbols and new ideas and new types of characters. It almost doesn't even have to be fantasy at that point. It's just like opening up your eyes to new doors and new perspectives is a really powerful spiritual, I really would say, a spiritual experience. So that is something kind of unique. I think that I'll be bringing to the table is looking at, you know, archetypes, looking at themes in an exploratory way, but also some just flat out fun things I want to do. I have an idea coming up that I want to read a book with my husband. We're gonna read it together and gauge his reactions and my reactions, stuff like that. So it's not all going to be like serious, like studying this like a lesson. It's gonna be more so like, let's just go with what we feel inspired to explore and to do. Question number 3, what are you most excited about for this new channel? So I probably cut it right there, but I had to read that question over and over and over again. So that's why I said it so intensely. What are you most excited about? So I am especially excited to meet new people and get new ideas for what to read. And like feel like I'm reading with a community, even though it's like sort of an isolated thing, you know, reading. I really love the idea of being connected and being able to have conversations about things and, you know, get ideas from other people about what to read next. So that sounds really, really fun to me. I'm most excited for that. Why do I love reading? That is question number 4, by the way. I think that goes back to what I was saying before about how you enter into different perspectives. And it's not just other points of views of other characters, which in itself is like so valuable as, you know, a human being developing and like understanding other people and trying to be like the best version of yourself, etc., etc. But also like with fantasy, seeing like different possibilities and like opening your mind up to different realities and different like different dynamics and different energies, and just that like that opening of the imagination, I feel like is so valuable and can translate into so many different parts of life. Like can make you a more creative person, a more open-minded person, a more like, you know, make you understand things in a more like abstract or advanced way. I just feel like there are so many benefits, and it's almost hard to like pinpoint exactly like what is my like love of reading. I know that a lot of people say that it's sort of like an escape, like you can escape into other worlds, and it is that for me, but it's also the like bringing back of that experience and how it affects me and how it affects how I move through the world. And talking to people who are readers and honestly like seeing how it's affected them, even if it's not like very easily definable, I feel like those experiences we were just talking about are gonna have an effect. Question number 5 is, what book or series got you into reading? And I have to say it was the Chronicles of Narnia. When I was very small, I remember my parents, mostly my mom I think at this point, reading to me as I went to sleep. And she would be reading to me books and like series of books that were definitely well above my reading level, but getting to hear those stories and immerse myself in those stories as I fell asleep, they really, I think, embedded themselves into my consciousness in some ways. But the Chronicles of Narnia is definitely one of those. It's actually one that I recently started putting on as an audiobook again. I started with The Magician's Nephew, but I want to go through that. Talk about a spiritual text. I want to go through that text again. I also remember The Little Princess and The Secret Garden. Those 2 books also left a very big impression on me when I was a child. Questions, this is number 6. What questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I feel like I would ask similar questions that I'd ask any content creator. I'm really curious about content creators on how, you know, and so if you're also doing this, please feel free to respond in the comments. But how do you balance? Like, how do you balance, you know, keeping the love of your hobby with like creating content from it? How do you decide like what in your life is content and what is private? How do you like navigate this as it's such a merging, right, of like your personal being, your creative outlet, your and possibly your job and like money. And anyway, those are always questions I'm curious about with content creators. Number 7, What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? So I'm gonna say this here at the very beginning, and I'm gonna try to like stick to this. I don't need to overly prove that I'm worthy of doing this, I think. And this is something I fall into, so that's why I kind of want to just like put it out there, is that like I could easily get into a hole of saying like, oh, like how do I make sure that I, you know, prove that I have good taste in books? Well, you know what, like maybe I actually just like want to read some fun stuff that's not like the highest quality literature. That's okay, you know what I mean? How do I prove that I'm reading enough? Like, whoa, I see these people, they're reading like, you know, 20 books a month or something, and it's like, I definitely don't have time to do that. Well, like I don't have to do that, and I can look at, for example, I was thinking I want to do TBR lists, not for the month ahead. That would feel almost too soon. It would almost feel like homework, but more so for the season ahead. Like, here are my winter books, here are my fall books, here, you know what I mean? So that's another example. Or feel like I have to buy everything in hard copy. I'm also a completionist. So, oh my gosh, I should just like tell myself this. It's okay to not finish a book or not finish a series. And it's also okay to not own everything or not own all of something. So those are the challenges. You can see my like mental gymnastics with some of those. Question number 8 is, when did you start reading? So I started reading young, like I said, especially being read to as a child. I also really immersed myself in books in elementary school because I was pretty shy. I forgot to mention this before, but I love writing. That's another thing. I love writing. I'm working on some fantasy right now, so add that to the other perspectives that perhaps I could bring. But I also started writing. I remember I wrote my first like chapter book when I was in 1st grade. So I also, in 4th grade, I remember I created this whole world. Like I did this like world building basically before I even knew what that was. And it had, okay, if this video gets out there, it'll be a miracle because my battery died and I ran out of memory, but I'm back. So I was talking about, in 4th grade, I created this whole world of, there was like a different language, there was history of the royal family, there were like customs, there was a religion, there was like geography, and I didn't even know that that's what I was doing. But yeah, so it's always, I feel like it's sort of like been in my blood. I really got into reading Shakespeare in early middle school, and that actually ended up sort of breaking me out of my shell and sending me more in a direction of theater. So that's, I've like been on this artistic journey, but I feel like my roots are actually with books, with writing and with reading. It really is. That's like where everything sort of stemmed from. So the next question is, where do you read? This is number 9. So I answered this a little bit earlier, but wherever I can. I will say that regularly though, I read going to bed. So I pretty much read every night right before falling asleep. I'm usually like reading until my eyes are just like, oh, like I can't keep them open and I can't do it anymore, but I want to. So yeah. So what kinds of books do I like to read? This is number 10. And so I'm just, you know, I'm just gonna be so real about this. I like reading really fun, easy to digest fantasy books with romance, okay? There's got to be some romance. That's like what keeps me going with the book. But yeah, I love the combination. So I guess it's called like romantasy, of fantasy and romance. I really do. I read a lot of very heavy spiritual texts and like esoteric stuff and stuff written in like very, I don't know, like academic or like old English or, you know, dense nonfiction. So I like my fiction to just be like, like a breath, you know what I mean? That is a really good balance to me. So, of course I love like, you know, classics and beautiful literature from like a literature's perspective. But at this phase in life right now, I I really just want something that is gonna keep me excited to keep picking up the book, that doesn't make me like think too hard. I can just absorb. That's what I want. So yeah, so fantasy, romance, easy, fun, easily digestible, fun to talk about. That's what I like. So my book collection, it actually at the moment is mostly nonfiction books. I have an entire bookshelf of art books, which is kind of like my background, and then another bookshelf of just spiritual books, which is, you know, my current work. And I've been reading fiction just on my Kindle. So in feeling inspired to start this channel, I've started buying some physical copies of the books because I also want to annotate. I want to tab them. So I'm not gonna buy a physical copy of everything, just like, you know, as my budget allows, as I feel inspired to. So I'm currently working on kind of like filling up a fiction bookshelf to go along with the other ones. So yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I hope that all parts of the video are in here. So I guess I'll see when I'm editing, but like, I swear, I was like, what? My battery died and my memory card ran out. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please let me know, do you watch booktube? Do you create booktube? I want to get to know you. I want to become a part of the community. So much love. Thank you all so much.